Hello, friends. Welcome to Conversations with Abdul. My name is Abdul. I'm 78 years old. I live in the lower mainland of BC. I have been in Canada for over 40 years. I was born in Mombasa, like I said, 78 years ago. And at the age of 31, when countries in East Africa were gaining their independence, there was a steady stream of immigrants from India leaving East African countries to find safer, more developed countries in the West. So my grandfather, paternal grandfather, and grandmother, they emigrated from India and traveled to or sailed to Kenya, where they established themselves. But, as anytime you want to settle in a new country or a new place, there's always this thought about, what if we go back? Maybe we can. Anyways, my dad was born in Mombasa, my mom was born in Uganda, and I was born the last child, the seventh child of my parents. And I want to give you a little bit of the background because that will set the tone about why I decided to make a series of videos to talk about my life, to share my experiences, and to get comments and to entertain conversations. So we can actually, talk about this and we might have similarities or we might not have similarities, but I think that is a good starting point. So I came to Canada in 1979. I was 31 years old. I will talk about my life in Kenya in another video because I want this to be an introduction. I want to let subscribers know why I'm making these videos. And so I came here in 1979. I was married 2 years earlier in Mombasa. And my wife and I had a 1-year-old daughter. We came to Canada and we immediately found out that the culture here was different. I was just settling down in my new marriage. I was a new father. And then I came here at that time. It's just how it happened. And I had to start my life from the bottom up. And, my wife and I, we went to Calgary. We worked hard, we put food on the table. And then if I can forward to 30 years after that, I lost my wife in 2009. And she had borne me a second child in Victoria in 1981. And my first child, my daughter, our daughter, she had a baby girl who was less than 2 years old when my wife and her grandmother passed away. And ever since that time, there was this talk in my home or at my daughter's home. She was married by then, of course, that I need to write something about my life in Mombasa, my parents, my school, and how I, went through life. And if I knew beyond that, when to talk about when my father was born and my mom was born, and all I knew about how they settled, and basically my daughter was saying that if I pass away, or when I pass away, if there is nothing on paper saying, like how we moved from India to Kenya, and then how we decided in Kenya to move to Canada, that if I did not leave any written document, that all will be lost. Because she would not know what happened in Mombasa before she was born. And remember, she was a year old when we came to Canada. And I don't like to write. I don't know. I've never read a book from cover to cover. And I cannot write a few lines before I get bored and I say, well, I should be maybe making myself a cup of coffee, and I get distracted. Maybe it's my horoscope. I'm double-minded. I'm a Gemini. But bottom line is, I needed to write something. So I started writing, and it was heavy for me. And for a number of years, I told myself I really like to talk to people. I'm a very social person. How about I make some videos for my kids and grandkids and their kids in the future, telling them everything I know and everything I experience in my life in Mombasa and in Canada. And after thinking about it for 4 or 5 weeks, or a couple of months, I decided that I was going to launch a channel and call it Conversations with Abdul. So if I have not already said so, I would like to welcome you guys to Conversations with Abdul. My name is Abdul, and I'm 78 years old. So it seemed to be like a good plan. Of course, I had some resistance from my daughter, and she figured, if I'm going to talk about everything and anything, because like I said, I'm a good talker. I love to talk about things. I have many interests. I've gone through a lot of things in my life, some good, some not so good. But, my daughter was a little worried, don't get into, so I'm going to create this, I've created this channel. I do not want to talk about politics. I do not want to talk about religion. I just want to talk about real life experiences. And I want to have conversation with my subscribers, with you guys. So I will follow your comments. I would love to, read your comments, and I can refer to them in my future videos. So we can actually form a group of, humans that will talk about things of interest in their lives. So the first thing I would like to talk about is retirement. And everywhere I went after I was 60, 65, I was still in business, and people asked me, oh, what do you do for a living? Are you retired? And I said, no, I'm still working. You're still working? And some people would, they felt that I was, I should retire. But anyways, there was a series of circumstances that kind of brought retirement to me. I didn't go chasing retirement. And that might sound funny, because if I was working for the government, or if I was working for a company and their retirement age was set at 65, I would have to, walk out of that place the day I reached 65. So I was in business in the Lower Mainland, And I had put my businesses up for sale. It was 2 restaurants. And I didn't know when I would sell them. So I couldn't say, okay, I'm going to retire on this particular date, which was fine. I mean, the business was keeping really busy, but like any other quick service restaurant, it was a lot of work for me. And also at the same time, after I lost my wife in 2009, I remarried in 2012, and it wasn't working out. It just wasn't working out. So I decided, okay, I got to walk out of this situation because you have one life to live. And if you're doing everything you're doing to make things work, and and every day there are issues, trivial issues that are creating a headache. So in 2019, I decided to walk away from my marriage. So that was one reason why I said, okay. And at the same time, almost at the same time, I started to get phone calls from prospective buyers for my burger businesses. And the reason for that is we went through a little bit of a recession in 2010, 11, 12. And then the numbers weren't showing, were not healthy. So there was no buyers. I mean, there's always buyers, but the money they offered was based on what I was showing on the bottom line. And I wasn't interested in taking a loss. I knew that things would pick up again, and that would be a good time to sell. But I had to stick it out. And I did that. And in 2018, I sold both my restaurants. And then 2019, I walked away from my marriage. My second marriage lasted 6.5 years. So after the marriage, after walking away from my ex-wife, I had to move. And by sheer coincidence, I had bought a pre-sale in the nice part of Lower Mainland, and it was still getting built. It was 1 year to go. So I spent the 1 year at my daughter's place, who lived in the area. And by that time, she had 3 kids. And when I moved to their home, they have a nice basement with a full kitchen, complete with a full bathroom, living and dining and stuff. My grandkids were, the eldest I think was about 12 years old. Then we had the middle guy, he was 9 years old, and the younger one was about 6 years old. And I had hardly seen them when they were growing up, because I was in business in North Vancouver and I was living in Burnaby. So I hardly made any trips to my daughter's place unless there was a birthday or But the thing I want to say right now is that now I was living with the people that I loved and the people that loved me. And, the universe had presented this situation where I was actually living under the same roof. And so I retired. I'm retired then, and I decided, okay, well, do I want to go to work? Because I was used to going to work. But I also had grandkids that I wanted to give as much of my time as I possibly could. And they felt the same for me. In fact, when I was leaving my daughter's place to move to my own condo that was ready for me to occupy, the grandkids were like, oh, Nana is leaving us again. Nana is a grandfather on mother's side. That's what we, in our Gujarati dialect, we say Nana. So, I basically just wanted to give you an overview of why I'm making these videos. I want to leave history behind for my grandkids. I want to leave interesting chat with my grandkids about my life and about, life in Canada, life after I retired, after I, spent time with them. And so in the next video, I'm going to tackle retirement. Like, I want to talk about retirement first because it has been the best time of my life. And I had to work at it. But the thing that helped me is my positive attitude and, not sweating the small stuff. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be making videos regularly. I want you to like and subscribe to my channel. I promise you, we will be talking about a lot of things. We'll be talking about cars, we'll be talking about health and diet. We'll be talking about a lot of things. And I will see you soon. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to chatting with you again. Please do not forget to subscribe and like this channel, and I'm going to make sure that we have interesting conversation on this channel, which is called Conversations with Abdul, and my name is Abdul. I'm so happy to meet you. Bye for now.